The evidence is clear, and the truth will prevail.
The heavy oak doors of Providence Municipal Court swing open, and she enters like she owns the place. Madison Sterling, 23 years old, daughter of real estate magnate Richard Sterling, whose property empire spans 12 states and is valued at over $800 million. She's wearing a cream-colored Chanel suit that costs more than most people's cars, paired with Louboutin heels that click against the marble floor with irritating precision. Her honey blonde hair is styled in perfect beach waves, and diamond studs, 2 carats each, catch the fluorescent lights as she tosses her hair dismissively. But it's her face that tells the real story. The practiced pout, the barely concealed sneer, the expression that says she's already decided this is all a colossal waste of her very important time. She pulls out her iPhone, the latest model, naturally, and begins typing, her manicured nails clicking against the screen. She doesn't look up, doesn't acknowledge the court officer, doesn't show even the faintest recognition that she's in a place that demands respect. And then it happens. The clerk calls her case. Madison glances up with theatrical boredom and rolls her eyes, a slow, exaggerated, contemptuous eye roll that would make a teenager proud. Several people in the gallery audibly gasp. What Madison Sterling doesn't know, what she can't possibly imagine, is that this single gesture is about to change her entire life. This moment, captured on the court's recording system, will be viewed over 52 million times, spark a national conversation about privilege and accountability, and become one of Judge Frank Caprio's most defining cases. What happens next will become one of the most talked about moments in courtroom history. The courtroom is packed this morning, unusual for a Wednesday in Providence. There's the standard mix of nervous defendants, weary lawyers, and citizens hoping for lenient judgments. The air smells faintly of coffee and floor polish. Sunlight streams through the tall windows, illuminating dust particles that dance in the quiet tension. Behind the bench sits Judge Frank Caprio, known for his compassion, 78 years old with gentle eyes that have witnessed 4 decades of human struggle, triumph, and everything in between. His viral videos have made him famous worldwide. The judge who forgave a grieving widow's parking ticket, who hugged a veteran struggling with PTSD, who paid a struggling father's fine out of his own pocket. He represents something increasingly rare in American justice, empathy combined with wisdom. The gallery includes Elena Vasquez, a 54-year-old housekeeper who cleans offices downtown, nervously clutching her purse, waiting for her own case about an expired registration. She'd been terrified to take time off work, losing half a day's wages, but she had no choice. Beside her sits Marcus Chun, an Uber driver facing his 3rd parking violation in a month, each one threatening his ability to keep driving and support his elderly mother. These are the people who typically fill Judge Caprio's courtroom. People trying their best. People who respect the system even when it feels stacked against them. And then there's Madison Sterling. Case number 3891. The clerk announces. The state versus Madison Elizabeth Sterling. Multiple charges: reckless driving, hit-and-run property damage, driving with expired registration and inspection, failure to yield to emergency vehicle, and obstruction of justice. Madison finally stands, moving with the languid pace of someone who's never been told to hurry. She approaches the defendant's table, but doesn't sit. Instead, she leans against it casually, one hip cocked, as if she's posing for an Instagram photo. Judge Caprio's eyes narrow slightly as he reviews the file. His expression doesn't change, but those who know him well, like his court officer Anthony, who's worked with him for 16 years, notice the subtle tightening around his mouth. Miss Sterling, Judge Caprio begins, his voice measured and calm. Do you understand the charges against you? Madison examines her nails. I guess. My lawyer was supposed to handle all this, but he had some emergency or whatever. So here I am. She says it like she's describing a trip to the DMV, not a court appearance for serious traffic violations. I see. Well, let me explain what we're looking at here. According to the police report, on the evening of March 15th, you were driving a 2023 Mercedes G-Wagon southbound on Broad Street when you sideswiped a parked vehicle, causing approximately $4,500 in damage. Instead of stopping, you continued driving. Is that correct? Madison shrugs. I mean, I might have bumped something, but it was barely a tap. The person's insurance will cover it, right? That's what insurance is for. A murmur ripples through the courtroom. Elena Vasquez shakes her head quietly, remembering how she'd scraped together money for months to pay her deductible after someone hit her car in a parking lot and fled. Judge Caprio continues, his patience evident, but not unlimited. Miss Sterling, leaving the scene of an accident is a serious offense. But we're not done. The police report also indicates that when officers attempted to pull you over 6 blocks later, you didn't stop for another 2 miles, during which you allegedly were on your cell phone. I was talking to my father. Madison's voice rises with indignation. It was an important business call. Was I just supposed to hang up on him? Do you know who he is? Right now, Miss Sterling, I'm more interested in who you are and why you think the law doesn't apply to you. Madison rolls her eyes again, longer, more dramatically this time. The camera catches it perfectly. This moment will change everything. Judge Caprio sets down the file and looks directly at Madison. There's something in his gaze, not anger, but a penetrating awareness that makes even Madison falter for a microsecond. Let's go through this systematically, he says. After the police finally got you to pull over, what happened? Madison sighs heavily, as if being asked to recount the story is an unbearable burden. The officer was incredibly rude. He demanded my license and registration, immediately. I told him I needed to finish my phone call first. It was with my father's attorney about a property deal worth $12 million. But he wouldn't wait. So unprofessional. The officer asked you for your license and registration, standard procedure, and you considered that rude? He interrupted my call. And then when I finally gave him my license, he had the audacity to tell me my registration expired 4 months ago. Like I'm supposed to keep track of that? That's what our household staff is for, but apparently, no one can do their job properly anymore. Marcus Chun, the Uber driver in the gallery, closes his eyes. His registration had expired by 3 days. 3 days, because he'd been working double shifts to afford his mother's medication. He'd been terrified about the fine. This woman's expired by 4 months, and she's complaining about her staff. Judge Caprio makes a note. And your inspection sticker? Also expired, apparently. Again, not my responsibility. My father has people who handle the cars. I just drive them. You're 23 years old, Miss Sterling. At what point does vehicle maintenance become your responsibility? Madison's perfectly sculpted eyebrows arch. Judge, with all due respect, I have more important things to focus on than whether some sticker is current. I'm working on my influencer brand. I have 340,000 Instagram followers. I'm launching a lifestyle company. I don't have time for this bureaucratic nonsense. What this privileged young woman doesn't know is that Judge Caprio has seen the complete police report. The one with body camera footage. The one that shows her not just being dismissive, but actively hostile. Ms. Sterling, I want to ask you about something else in this report. It says here that when the officer asked you to step out of the vehicle for a field sobriety test, that was harassment. Madison's voice turned sharp. I had 2 glasses of wine at dinner, too. I was completely fine to drive, but he treated me like some criminal. I told him my father plays golf with the mayor and that this whole thing could be cleared up with 1 phone call, but he got all power trippy about it. So you attempted to leverage your father's connections to avoid a legitimate sobriety test? I wasn't leveraging anything. I was stating facts. My family contributes significantly to this city. We pay more in property taxes than most people earn in a decade. That should count for something. The courtroom falls into complete silence. Elena Vasquez grips her purse tighter. She pays her taxes too. Every penny she earns cleaning offices at minimum wage, she reports. She's never once thought it entitled her to special treatment. Judge Caprio leans back in his chair, studying Madison with an expression that's difficult to read. Tell me about the emergency vehicle. Oh, that. Madison waves her hand dismissively. I was driving down Westminster Street, and an ambulance came up behind me with its lights on. I was in the middle of a lane. I couldn't just magically disappear. So I kept going until there was space to pull over. What was I supposed to do? Crash my car? According to witnesses, Miss Sterling, the ambulance was behind you for 4 blocks with its sirens blaring, and you didn't pull over until you reached your destination, a parking space right in front of the restaurant you were going to. Madison's face flushes slightly, the first crack in her composed exterior. That's an exaggeration. And besides, if it was a real emergency, they would have gone around me. It was a real emergency, Miss Sterling. They were transporting a 67-year-old man having a massive heart attack. The delay caused by your failure to yield, combined with traffic, meant they arrived at Rhode Island Hospital 3 minutes later than they should have. That patient spent an additional 45 minutes in surgery because of the extended damage to his heart. For the first time, Madison looks uncertain, but it passes quickly. Well, how was I supposed to know it was serious? Ambulances drive around all the time. Judge Caprio's jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. That's precisely why the law requires you to yield to all emergency vehicles, Miss Sterling, because we don't get to decide which emergencies are serious enough. Madison crosses her arms defensively. Look, Judge, I get that you're trying to make some kind of point here, but can we just get to the fine? I'll pay whatever it is. I have my father's credit card right here. She actually pulls out a Black American Express card and holds it up like it's a magic wand that will make all of this disappear. The prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Jennifer Ramirez, who makes $52,000 a year, watches this display with barely concealed disgust. She's prosecuted hundreds of traffic cases, people who genuinely couldn't afford their fines, who broke down crying at the thought of points on their license, who showed real remorse for minor infractions. This is something else entirely. Miss Sterling, Judge Caprio says quietly, please put that away. This court doesn't accept credit cards, and even if it did, we're far beyond simple fines here. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've shown a pattern of behavior that suggests you believe wealth exempts you from responsibility. Reckless driving, property damage, fleeing the scene, obstructing emergency services, attempting to intimidate an officer. These aren't minor infractions. They're indicative of someone who thinks she's above the law. Madison's face hardens. I don't think I'm above the law. I just think this whole system is designed to punish people for minor mistakes while actual criminals get away with everything. I bumped a car, big deal. I'll pay for the damage. Can I go now? She actually starts to turn away. Miss Sterling, sit down. The command in Judge Caprio's voice stops her cold. She turns back, her face a mixture of shock and indignation. I've been a judge in this courtroom for 39 years, he continues, his voice rising slightly, and I have never seen such a complete lack of accountability, such a total absence of basic respect, not just for this court, but for every person your actions affected. Madison's mask finally cracks. You don't get to talk to me like that. My father will. Your father is not here, Miss Sterling. You are. And it's time you faced the consequences of your choices. Judge Frank Caprio stands. In nearly 4 decades on the bench, he stood like this only a handful of times, moments when something shifts, when compassion must be balanced with accountability, when the lesson matters more than the letter of the law. The courtroom recognizes the significance immediately. Every conversation stops. Every head turns. The court reporter's fingers pause over her keyboard. Madison, despite her bravado, takes an involuntary step backward. Do you know what I did this morning before coming to court? Judge Caprio asks, his voice quieter now, but somehow more powerful. I visited Rhode Island Hospital. I do that sometimes, when I have time. I visit people whose lives intersect with the cases I see. Madison's eyes widen slightly. I met John Patterson, 67 years old. Retired postal worker, grandfather to 4, the man who was in that ambulance you delayed. Judge Caprio pauses, letting the words sink in. He survived, Miss Sterling. Barely. The doctors told me that the additional time, those precious minutes, made the difference between a full recovery and permanent heart damage. He'll need medication for the rest of his life now. Medication his Medicare barely covers. Medication that, incidentally, Costs about as much per month as those shoes you're wearing probably cost. Madison looks down at her Louboutins involuntarily. I also, Judge Caprio continues, spoke with Karen DeMeo. She's the owner of the car you bumped. She's a nurse at that same hospital. Single mother of 2. She works night shifts to support her children and her own mother, who has dementia. That $4,500 in damage? Her insurance has a $2,000 deductible. Do you know what $2,000 means to someone like Karen? It means no new winter coats for her kids. It means another 6 months before she can fix her own car's transmission. It means anxiety and stress and sleepless nights. The judge's voice grows stronger. But you don't know any of this, do you? Because you didn't stop. You didn't check if anyone was hurt. You didn't leave a note. You just kept going, because in your world, other people's problems aren't your responsibility. Madison's face has gone pale. I didn't know. Exactly. Judge Caprio's voice rings out. You didn't know because you didn't care to know. You didn't think about the ambulance carrying someone's grandfather. You didn't think about the working mother whose car you damaged. You didn't think about the police officer just trying to do his job safely. You only thought about yourself, your phone call, your dinner reservation, your convenience. He steps down from the bench, something he virtually never does, and walks slowly toward Madison, not threateningly, but with purpose. I've sat on this bench and seen people at their absolute worst moments. I've seen addicts struggling to stay clean. I've seen people who made terrible mistakes because they were desperate, scared, or broken. And do you know what the difference is between them and you? Madison shakes her head mutely. Her earlier defiance completely evaporated. They showed remorse. They acknowledged that their actions affected other people. They understood that being part of a society means we have obligations to each other. You walked in here treating this like an inconvenience. Like the only thing wrong was that you got caught. Judge Caprio's voice softens, but the steel remains. Your father's money can buy you a lot of things, Miss Sterling. Designer clothes, expensive cars, followers on social media. But it can't buy you character. It can't buy you empathy. And it certainly can't buy you a free pass in this courtroom. A single tear runs down Madison's face, the first genuine emotion she's shown since entering. I'm sorry, she whispers, so quietly it's almost inaudible. I'm not the one you need to apologize to. Judge Caprio responds. And right now, I don't know if you're sorry for what you did, or just sorry you're facing consequences. He returns to the bench, his face grave. What I'm about to do, Miss Sterling, isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to save you. Because right now, you're on a path that leads to a hollow, meaningless life where you never connect with anything real. And that would be a tragedy, not just for you, but for everyone whose life you touch. Judge Frank Caprio picks up his gavel, but he doesn't strike it yet. He looks at Madison Sterling, really looks at her, seeing past the designer clothes and practiced superiority to the young woman who's never been held truly accountable for anything. Madison Elizabeth Sterling for the charges of reckless driving, hit-and-run property damage, expired registration and inspection, failure to yield to an emergency vehicle, and attempted obstruction of justice. I am imposing the following sentence. Madison's lawyer, a harried-looking man who just rushed in, starts to stand, but Judge Caprio holds up a hand. First, the financial penalties. Hit-and-run property damage, $5,000. Reckless driving, $1,500. Failure to yield to emergency vehicle, $2,000. Expired documents, $800. Obstruction, $3,000. Total fines, $12,300. Madison barely reacts. That's nothing to her family. However, Judge Caprio continues, and something in his tone makes her look up sharply. Money is not going to be enough here. Not even close. He reads from a document he's been preparing. You are hereby sentenced to 600 hours of community service, to be completed over the next 12 months. But this will not be ordinary community service. Madison's mouth opens, but no sound comes out. You will complete 200 hours working the night shift at Rhode Island Hospital in the emergency department. Not as a medical professional. You're not qualified for that. You'll be doing the work no one else wants to do. Cleaning rooms, restocking supplies, assisting nurses with patient transport. And yes, that includes emptying bedpans, changing soiled linens, and cleaning up after people who are sick, scared, and vulnerable. The courtroom erupts in whispers. Judge Caprio waits for silence. You will complete another 200 hours, working with the Providence Police Department's Victim Services Unit. You will sit with people whose cars were damaged in hit-and-run accidents. You will help them navigate insurance paperwork. You'll hear their stories. You'll understand the real impact of what you call a minor mistake. Madison is shaking now, whether from anger or fear. It's impossible to tell. The final 200 hours will be served working with emergency medical services. You will ride along with ambulance crews. You will see what happens when seconds matter. You will understand why those sirens mean life or death. And you will personally apologize to John Patterson and his family for delaying his emergency care. This is insane. Madison finally finds her voice. I have a business to run. I have commitments. Then you should have thought about that before you decided traffic laws didn't apply to you. Judge Caprio responds calmly. Furthermore, your driver's license is suspended for 18 months. During that time, you will rely entirely on public transportation, buses, trains, walking. You will learn what it's like for the millions of Americans who don't have the luxury of a Mercedes G-Wagon. Madison's face crumples. You can't do this. I absolutely can, and I am. Additionally, you will write a personal letter of apology to Karen DeMeo, the woman whose car you damaged, and you will personally deliver a cashier's check for $4,500 to cover her damages in full, not through insurance. She shouldn't have to pay her deductible for your carelessness. My father will appeal this. He'll have your job. Judge Caprio's expression doesn't change. Your father is welcome to try. But let me be clear. Every word you've spoken today, every eye roll, every dismissive gesture, it's all on record. If you appeal, that recording will be part of the public file. The whole world will see exactly who you are. Is that what your father wants for his business reputation? Madison's lawyer whispers urgently in her ear. She doesn't respond. Finally, Judge Caprio says, you will attend a weekly accountability workshop for 6 months. You'll meet with other people who've received similar sentences, people working to rebuild their character, to understand how their actions affect others, to become better citizens. And if I refuse? Madison asks, her voice small and defeated. Then the community service doubles to 1,200 hours, the fines triple, and I will personally recommend jail time for contempt of court. These aren't suggestions, Miss Sterling. This is a court order. You will comply, or the consequences will escalate significantly. Judge Caprio leans forward one final time. I'm not doing this because I enjoy punishing people. I'm doing this because I've seen what happens when wealth and privilege go unchecked. I've seen young people destroy themselves and others because no one ever taught them that actions have consequences. This sentence is difficult, yes, but it's nothing compared to the difficulty of living a life empty of empathy, connection, and purpose. He picks up the gavel. This court is in recess. Ms. Sterling, you'll report to the probation office by 4 p.m. today to receive your service schedule. Don't be late. Bang! The gavel falls like thunder. The courtroom explodes, not with chaos, but with a sound somewhere between shock and satisfaction. A collective release of breath that says, finally, someone held accountable. Madison stands frozen at the defendant's table, tears streaming down her face, her carefully constructed facade completely shattered. Her lawyer is already on his phone, presumably calling her father. But it's what happens next that turns this from a local court case into a national phenomenon. Someone in the courtroom, a law student who'd been observing for a class, had live-streamed the entire proceeding on TikTok. Within 1 hour, the video has 500,000 views. By evening, it's at 3 million. By the next morning, it's everywhere. Trends nationally within 6 hours. Garners 8 million impressions. Becomes a rallying cry across social media platforms. News outlets go wild. CNN runs a segment titled, when entitlement meets accountability. Fox News debates whether the sentence is fair or too harsh. MSNBC interviews John Patterson, a heart attack patient, who tearfully thanks Judge Caprio for making his suffering count for something. The video reaches 52 million views in 5 days. But Madison's immediate reaction is to fight. Her father, Richard Sterling, whose real estate empire has made him used to getting his way, issues a statement through his PR firm. Judge Caprio's sentence against my daughter is excessive, punitive, and reflects a bias against successful families. We will be pursuing all legal remedies to overturn this miscarriage of justice. The statement backfires spectacularly. Within hours, is trending with thousands of people sharing their own stories of working multiple jobs, struggling to pay bills, and never once thinking traffic laws didn't apply to them. A Twitter user named Single Mom Nurse posts, "I'm Karen DeMayo, the woman whose car Madison Sterling hit. I work 60-plus hour weeks to support my family. The $2,000 deductible would have destroyed me. Thank you, Judge Caprio, for seeing us." The tweet gets 340,000 likes. A Providence police officer, using an anonymous account, shares the body camera footage, which becomes public record through the court case. It shows Madison not just being dismissive, but actually saying, "Do you know how much my father pays in taxes? You literally work for us." That clip alone gets 15 million views. The Sterling family's real estate company starts receiving backlash. Tenants in their buildings share stories of negligent maintenance, aggressive rent increases, and dismissive management. A Facebook group called Sterling Properties Victims grows to 12,000 members in 3 days. Richard Sterling's golf buddies, including, awkwardly, the mayor, quietly distanced themselves. When asked about the case at a press conference, the mayor says diplomatically, "Judge Caprio has my complete confidence. The judicial system must remain independent." Madison's social media becomes a battlefield. Her Instagram, once filled with lifestyle content and brand partnerships, is flooded with comments. This is what privilege looks like when it finally faces consequences. Hope those 600 hours teach you what your 800M upbringing didn't. Judge Caprio is a legend. You're just spoiled. Maybe clean a bedpan and think about John Patterson, whose life you endangered. Several of her brand partnerships, including a luxury skincare line and a travel company, quietly terminate their contracts. Being associated with her has become toxic. Her father's legal team files an emergency appeal, claiming the sentence is cruel and unusual punishment. It's denied within 48 hours. The appellate judge writes, "Community service designed to build empathy and accountability is neither cruel nor unusual. It is, in fact, exactly the kind of creative sentencing we should encourage." Appeal denied. But perhaps the most devastating blow comes from an unexpected source, Madison's own mother. Catherine Sterling, who has largely stayed out of the public eye, gives an exclusive interview to the Providence Journal. "I'm ashamed that I raised a daughter who could treat people so callously. My husband has spent years teaching Madison that money solves everything, that we're somehow better than others. I'm grateful to Judge Caprio for doing what I failed to do, showing her that character matters more than bank accounts. She will complete every hour of her sentence, even if I have to drive her there myself." The interview goes viral, adding another layer to the story. A mother choosing values over defending her child's behavior. Madison's friends, her exclusive social circle of influencers, and trust fund kids, also scatter. Screenshots leak of a group chat where they discuss her. "Madison is bad for our brands right now. We need distance. My publicist says anyone associated with her will get dragged." Maybe she deserved it, TBH. She was always kind of awful to service people. Within a week, Madison Sterling goes from social media darling with 340,000 followers to a cautionary tale about privilege and consequence. But the story isn't over yet. 6 months pass. It's 11:47 p.m. on a cold October night at Rhode Island Hospital. The emergency department is in controlled chaos, typical for a Saturday night. A nurse rushes past carrying medication. A doctor is stitching up a patient's laceration. The waiting room is full of people in various states of distress. And in the back, in a small supply room, Madison Sterling is restocking shelves. She's wearing scrubs, not designer clothes. Her hair is pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her face is free of makeup, showing the dark circles under her eyes from working night shifts. Her hands, once perfectly manicured, are now rough and chapped from constant sanitizing. She looks exhausted, but something else has changed too. In her eyes, there's awareness, presence. The vacant entitlement has been replaced by something that might be the beginning of consciousness. Madison, a nurse named Patricia, pokes her head in. We have an incoming trauma. MVA, multiple casualties. I need you to prep room 3 stat. Madison doesn't roll her eyes, doesn't complain. She simply nods and moves quickly to prepare the room. Her movements efficient and practiced now. The trauma arrives, a family who was hit by a drunk driver. A mother, a father, 2 children. Madison watches as the medical team works frantically to save them. She sees the fear in the father's eyes as he's wheeled past, asking, "Are my kids okay? Please, are my kids okay?" She sees Patricia holding the hand of the terrified 7-year-old daughter, saying, "You're safe now, sweetheart. We've got you." And she understands, perhaps for the first time, that these aren't abstract scenarios. These are real people whose lives balance on knife edges of chance and consequence. Later that night, during her break, Madison sits alone in the cafeteria, writing in a journal, something her accountability counselor suggested. I used to think 600 hours was punishment. Now I realize it's a gift. I've seen things these past 6 months that I never would have seen from inside my bubble. I've held the hand of a man dying of cancer who had no family. I've helped clean up after an overdose victim who was someone's son. I've ridden in ambulances where every second meant the difference between life and death. I think about the day in court constantly. How I rolled my eyes. How I thought Judge Caprio was beneath me. How I believed my father's money made me special. It didn't make me special. It made me blind. The transformation isn't complete. She still has moments of frustration, times when her old attitudes surface. But she's trying, genuinely trying. At the Victim Services office, she sits across from Karen DeMeo, the nurse whose car she damaged. "I know I gave you a check," Madison says, her voice steady but humble. "But I wanted to apologize in person. What I did, leaving without checking on you, treating it like it didn't matter, that was wrong. You're a nurse. You help people. And I made your life harder for no reason except my own carelessness." Karen studies her for a long moment. "Thank you," she finally says. "That means more than the money." With the ambulance service, Madison learns protocol. She understands now why those sirens can't wait, why every second counts. When she finally meets John Patterson, the heart attack patient, she breaks down completely. "I could have killed you," she sobs, "because I was too selfish to pull over. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." John, recovering but forever changed, places a hand on her shoulder. "You didn't kill me. And you're here now, doing the work. That counts for something." On the day Madison completes her 600th hour, Judge Frank Caprio summons her back to court. The courtroom is once again packed, but this time the energy is different. Madison stands before the bench, no longer in Chanel but in simple clothes. No longer defiant but genuinely changed. "Miss Sterling," Judge Caprio begins, "I've received reports from every location where you served. The hospital says you were reliable, compassionate, and willing to do whatever was needed. The Victim Services Office says you connected genuinely with people. The EMS team says you saved a life last month by recognizing the signs of a stroke before they reached the patient." Madison nods, tears already forming. "I want you to know something. When I sentenced you, I wasn't trying to break you. I was trying to help you see. To see beyond your privilege. To see the humanity in every person you encounter. To see that your actions ripple outward in ways you can't always predict." His voice softens. 6 months ago, you were a young woman who thought her family's wealth defined her worth. Today, you're someone who understands that real worth comes from how we treat others, especially when there's nothing in it for us. Judge Caprio stands, just as he did during her sentencing, but the energy is completely different. Your sentence is complete, Miss Sterling. You fulfilled every requirement. But I want to ask you something. What will you do now? Madison takes a deep breath. I've enrolled at Rhode Island College to study nursing. I'm going to sell my luxury car and use the money to pay off Karen DeMayo's hospital debt. She mentioned she has some from her mother's care. And I've started a foundation with my own money, not my father's, to help hit-and-run victims with their deductibles and repairs. The courtroom erupts in applause. Judge Caprio smiles, that warm, genuine smile that has made him beloved worldwide. That, he says, is what true justice looks like. Not punishment for punishment's sake, but transformation, growth, the recognition that we can all be better than our worst moments. He addresses the courtroom and the cameras. I've been on this bench for 39 years. I've seen thousands of people come through those doors. Some stay broken, some stay defiant, but the ones who truly listen, who take accountability and use it as fuel for change, those are the ones who remind me why I do this work. His eyes return to Madison. You came here as a cautionary tale about privilege. You're leaving as an example of redemption. Never forget where you came from, not to be ashamed, but to remember. Remember how it felt to be held accountable. Remember the people you met during those 600 hours. Remember that empathy isn't optional, it's essential. I will, Your Honor, Madison says, her voice clear. Every single day. This story isn't just about one entitled Young Woman Learning Humility. It's about all of us examining how we move through the world. It's about recognizing that privilege, whether economic, racial, educational, or social, comes with responsibility, not entitlement. It's about understanding that every person we encounter is fighting battles we know nothing about. The nurse whose car we hit, the ambulance driver rushing to save a life, the judge trying to balance compassion with accountability. It's about judges like Frank Caprio, who understand that the goal isn't to destroy people, it's to help them become their best selves. And it's about the fundamental truth that character isn't built in moments of comfort. It's built in moments of consequence, when we're forced to confront who we really are and decide who we want to become. Madison Sterling rolled her eyes at a judge and faced the most difficult 6 months of her life. But those 6 months saved her from a lifetime of hollow privilege and empty achievement. That eye roll, captured on video, viewed by 52 million people, became the catalyst for genuine transformation. And that is what true justice looks like. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Share it with a young person struggling with privilege. Share it with someone in power who's forgotten what accountability means. Share it with anyone who needs to remember that change is always possible, but only when we're willing to do the hard work. What would you have done if you were Judge Caprio? Was the sentence too harsh? Too lenient? Would you have given Madison a chance at redemption? Or would you have thrown the book at her? Comment below, and let's have a real conversation about privilege, accountability, and second chances. If you believe in the kind of justice Judge Caprio represents, justice that's firm but compassionate, accountability paired with opportunity for growth, then hit that subscribe button. These stories matter. These conversations matter. We need more people willing to look beyond the surface and see the potential for transformation. We need more judges who understand that punishment without purpose is just cruelty, but accountability with support is the foundation of real change. And we need more people willing to roll up their sleeves, literally, in Madison's case, and do the hard work of becoming better humans. Justice isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. This is what true justice looks like.